last session today is the 10-day accessibility challenge by Lene Whitley-Putz. Lene is the Dean of Online Learning at Foothill College. Prior to becoming an administrator, she spent 28 years teaching writing and communication. She believes that there is always a way to encourage growth mindset in students and to ensure instructors and administrators to continue to improve their own talents. And with that, I am going to go ahead and turn it over to Lene.
Hi, Dawn. Thank you so much. And I'm really excited to be here. As a matter of fact, I'm smack in the middle of my summer vacation, the first vacation that I've taken since shelter in place. And so I have a little bit of vacation brain. So forgive me if I've forgotten how to use Zoom or anything else, because I've really put myself into vacation mode until today. But accessibility is so important. I just really didn't want to miss this particular presentation, and I'm really excited to be here today. So what I want to show you is a series of videos that we built for Foothill College to help instructors do a self-paced accessibility check of their courses. We built these 10 videos as our instructors were putting their courses through a peer online course review process. And we used some resources that were already offered by the CVC OEI in the Canvas Commons, and we augmented those resources with these videos. And so the videos are aligned to the CVC OEI rubric. And I'm sure that most of you know what that is, but I just want to kind of run through really quickly what it was that we are looking at. So I'm just going to go ahead and do a massive overshare by sharing my entire desktop here as we switch back and forth between some resources. So that's totally not helpful for you to see us or that. Okay. So what we have here is this OEI course that was that's offered via the Commons. That's an intro to designing for accessibility. And from their module view, what you'll see is that they have instructions for adopting this course, but then also walk you through the sections of the OEI rubric that deal with accessibility in Canvas. In this particular piece, what we were really trying to do with our faculty is separate out the difference between the things that they're building in Canvas and how to make those accessible versus documents that they may be using, whether they built them or whether they're using documents from other people. So we really wanted to separate out that Canvas content and the documents, because we often heard from faculty that it was overwhelming to do the remediation in documents. And so we thought, okay, if we could put these things that are easier in front of them and really make them feel confident in addressing the issues in their Canvas courses as they're using the rich content editor, then we can later address the documents. And I'll tell you a little bit about how we did that as well. So in the OEI rubric, it's broken down into heading styles, lists, descriptive links, headers and tables, color contrast, images and alt text, and captioning. And those are the pieces that are in this particular course. And so it's really focused on what people can do with the rich content editor. And the CVC OEI course has text descriptions with images of the old rich content editor on how you can use Canvas to create accessible headings, links, so on and so forth. And so what we did is created a second course. Let me flip back and forth between different browsers here. And in this one, we've added to the modules the videos that we created. So when we talk about heading styles, we have 3 videos that are kind of breaking down headings into very short nuggets. And each one of these videos just walks people through a little bit of kind of the theory or pedagogy behind the requirement, and then how you actually do it in Canvas. And so we tried to keep them in between 3 and 5 minutes so that they would be very specific, doable, watchable, broken up into these little chunks, so that as we were reviewing people's courses, we could also say, hey, you should look at day 3 of the accessibility challenge. So that's the basic overview of the resources that we have made available. Now, when we did these, we branded it for Foothill College because we wanted our faculty to know that we were creating these resources specifically for them. But when I talked to Helen of the CVC OEI about what we were doing, she said, boy, it would be really great if we could have these videos unbranded. And I firmly believe that sharing is caring, that we can do more if we don't have to reinvent the wheel. So what we've done for you, all of these are in a playlist on YouTube, and we have both the old content editor and the new rich content editor now. But also in the files of this particular course, there is a folder that has all 10 of the videos, and they're generic. They have no branding on them. And they're done using animation. And so it's not like you can go in and use that animation to create something unique for your campus, but you could do something at the front end and the back end of the video to introduce it to your campus. And you could interrupt the video and add something of your own, or selectively edit the video. So you can download these files right here from this course and use those on your own campus. One of the interesting things that I heard back from Michael at Long Beach City College is that he took the videos, he put them into a Canvas course that he built at a pacing that was more useful for his campus, and they're using Ally. And so we're using Peer Online Course Review. Before people get their course reviewed, we do an accessibility check and we let them know which pieces of the 10-day challenge are most important for them to focus on. But what he's doing on his campus is that they run an Ally check and they get their Ally score. And then they do their 10-day accessibility challenge. And he reported to me that their Ally scores have gone up 30%. And so that's a really great thing when you can see the impact that the short videos are having on people as they're looking at their courses. And for us, we have a really small team, and we have more and more people interested in going through Peer Online Course Review, which is great. But doing those accessibility checks then becomes very time consuming, and then helping people remediate becomes even more time consuming. So if we can find a way to make it a little bit easier for faculty to understand what it is that we are asking them to do, and to kind of demystify how that happens in Canvas, then like Long Beach City College, we're seeing big changes for people. So for instance, people started telling us, oh my gosh, once I realized that I was making this mistake in my headings, I went through all of my courses and realized that I had been doing it consistently. And so they weren't just modifying the course that was going through peer review, but modifying all of their courses. We also realized that as they became more aware of some things that maybe they didn't know about, small things about heading structure or something like that, then they became more interested in complying with all of the sections, section D of the OEI rubric. And so that was exciting as well, where we felt like we were kind of talking into the air before, all of a sudden people were more interested in remediating their courses and felt more empowered to do it themselves, which is really critical because as they're adding content into Canvas, it needs to be accessible. We don't want that added step where they have to go and have an instructional designer look at the material before it's actually accessible. So I feel I've talked kind of in a circle there. So I want to go back again and explain the resources that we have for you. So we have the 10-Day Accessibility Challenge already in a playlist that is branded Foothill College, but it's fully captioned and ready to go. And that's with the new rich content editor. Or you have access to a Canvas course, which is in Canvas Commons, where the 10 videos are loaded into the course as generic videos that you can then download and brand for your campus, or use in a way that makes more sense for your campus. And we have those videos laced through an open resource from the CVC OEI so that your instructors can read about heading styles. They can actually walk through an example from the CVC OEI, see that example, and then select a video that makes sense to them. And all of these are open resources that are available to you through Canvas Commons or through YouTube. So I'm not sure, let's see. I'm checking the chat to see if there's any questions about where we're at so far. And I don't see any, that's good. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is go ahead and optimize this and show you one of these.
Hi everyone, welcome to day 1 of the 10-Day Accessibility Challenge. Today's topic is, what is a heading? You may be wondering, why do I need headings? What can headings do for me or my students? Good questions. Headings allow readers to scan a page, which helps them quickly find information. Good readers use the information they can get from a quick scan to develop schema, helping them organize and learn information. So the biggest job of headings is to provide structure to a page so learners can more easily access the information. Heading level 1 is the main topic of the page. Heading level 2 are subtopics, and you can have many subtopics on each page. Heading level 3 are subtopics of heading level 2. I guess you could say they are subtopics. In Canvas, the page title is always heading level 1, which means when you create a heading level in the Rich Content Editor, you always start with heading level 2. Let's take a look at this in Canvas. By default, the title in Canvas is always heading level 1. The first subtopic on the page is heading level 2. To create a heading, place your cursor in the midst of the text that will be the heading, then select the heading level from the paragraph drop-down menu. Again, that's place your cursor in the line, and then select the heading level from the paragraph drop-down menu. Remember, accessibility is our shared responsibility, and using headings allows readers to scan quickly and develop schema to support learning. And they provide meaningful structure to our pages. Learning together is the key to our success. Thanks for watching, and now it's your turn. Go make your headings accessible. See you tomorrow for the next installment of the 10-Day Accessibility Challenge.
Okay, so what we have on YouTube are the branded videos, and what is in the course that's in Canvas Common are unbranded, and you're welcome to use any of those on your campus. But the idea was that we would be breaking these up into small enough chunks that the direct alignment to the CVC rubric would be 100% clear. Like, you're watching this video so that you can align to this part of the rubric, but also so that we could kind of talk people through not just this is how you do it, but this is the reason why you want to do it. This is how it's going to benefit you, or this is how it's going to benefit your students. One other thing that we did is we're currently aligning our equity initiative in online learning with all of the other pieces that we're doing in online learning. So wherever possible, we used imagery or examples that represented a diverse group of students or a diverse population, which was really, really fun to actually do, to incorporate some examples or people that might not necessarily be seen in our normal curriculum, especially in our online pedagogy curriculum. And so there's a little bit of an equity edge to the pieces that we're doing as well. I taught gender and communication for many, many years. And so I used an example of Grace Hopper, who was one of the first computer scientists in one of the videos. And that was really fun for me to be able to subtly insert some of the things that women have done in what has been a male dominated field. So it's kind of a twofer. There's a bonus there of getting some equity messages through as well, and maybe demonstrating for your faculty how they can insert imagery of diverse people in their course curriculum too. So we have these micro lessons that are aligned with the CVC OEI rubric. We have them in a place where you can use them right now, but we also have them in a place where you can adopt them and change them for your own use. And then the other piece that we thought was really important is that our faculty were feeling very much like accessibility was something that they couldn't do alone. And so by purposefully focusing on what they're adding to Canvas and how they're using the rich editor in Canvas to create content, we created kind of a scaffolding to what they were doing to remediate PDFs. So each one of the pieces on, creating heading structure, what your heading structure looks like on your Canvas page, we then have workshops to say, hey, you already know how to do this. You've really mastered this in your Canvas pages. This is also applicable to a Word document. So how you might remediate a PDF is to go back to the Word document, add in this heading structure, add in your alt text, and then all of a sudden this document that was so difficult to remediate turns out to be fairly easy to remediate now that you know these kind of building blocks of accessibility. We ran this as a 10-day challenge. That was really fast. So I don't necessarily recommend doing that. We did it at the end of our spring quarter. We're one of the only campuses on the quarter system. So we're just entering finals right now. And it was a lot for our faculty. Our original idea was, one quick video every single morning. We published it on Canvas every single morning. And then people could spend the day working on that. And then the next day there'd be a new video. And what people ended up telling us was that they got really far behind and that they weren't able to kind of keep up with the 10-day challenge. So, you might want to think about it as giving them the information in a 10-day challenge, but then letting them know that they have plenty of time to actually work on remediating their course, or maybe just have them work on a specific module in a course and do the 10-day challenge on a specific module so that it is a more doable task. We have had faculty that we've been working with for a long time that have had massive accessibility issues in their course. things where people have copied and pasted from a Word document into their Canvas course to make their Canvas pages. The Word document itself wasn't accessible. And then when they add the material to their Canvas course, they're adding in not only an accessible structure, but then also some leftover HTML or code from their Word document. So it makes it even harder for them to clean up. And we've walked them through this accessibility challenge. And I mean, these are people that we've been working with for a couple of years now. That was like, it was really slow progress. And it's like a light bulb went on for them. This resource that they could go back to over and over again to see how to do it in Canvas. We show code whenever possible so that people can understand what's happening in the background. And that's been super useful for us. So we've had faculty that have come back to us and said, you know, you've been telling me about this for 2 years and I just got it through this video. So that's always a really good feeling to know that the resource that you're creating is super useful. So for those of you who may not use the Commons that often, let's walk through really quickly how to find that. I accidentally just tried to leave the meeting. That would have been kind of scary. Okay, so let's get back into Chrome. So when you're in the Commons, you're going to be looking for a course called Accessibility in Canvas. I just uploaded this, so right now it has 0 downloads. When you search for accessibility in Canvas, tons of stuff comes up and not this. So go ahead and search via my last name, and then you'll have fewer things to go through. Again, it's called Accessibility in Canvas, and I uploaded it, so it's under my name. So that's the best way, the fastest way to find it. So it's a super easy resource. The things are all there for you. I would really like to open it up to questions and answers or ideas from people about how you might be able to use this or modify this for your campus, because like the idea from Long Beach City College to tie it to assignments and have people, the faculty that are going through, actually submit something was a really great idea that I hadn't thought of. And so I think that, you know, the overall feeling of this particular presentation is that accessibility can seem like a really big task, but if we share resources with one another and share ideas with one another, we're going to be more able to actually get it done. I also want to have a little caveat here. I feel like in the last maybe 4 or 5 years that accessibility has become, you know, piece of my wheelhouse, and I have learned so much about accessibility compared to where I was at 10 years ago. But I also think that there's some interpretive pieces and that we learn from one another all the time. So I'm not in any way going to say that the pieces of the accessibility challenge are 100% black and white. This is the law. Some of it's interpreted. And if you feel like something needs to be changed, or if we need to modify something, or if it is out of date, please let me know. We are constantly updating these. This is probably the 3rd or 4th iteration of these videos, and it's only been 1.5 years since we started using them. So that's my little caveat. Please feel free to contact me if you think that something needs to be changed or you have an idea for improving them. So Stacy, I'm not sure that I understand your question. What was the website? Which website? If you could just clarify.
Sorry, it was the one that you were just speaking about, and you shut your screen down right when I was getting it.
Okay, it might have been Canvas Commons.
Was it Canvas Commons?
Yeah.
Where you put in your last name and you can search for.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I'll show people how to do that again at the very end. Because sometimes people are, think, oh yeah, I know how to use the comments, and then they go to find it and they can't find it. So, and then Maureen wants to know if we use the Canvas accessibility checker in the videos. A couple of them we do, but for the most part, we found the Canvas accessibility checker to be really inaccurate. I'm sure you all have found that as well. It gives a lot of false positives. Like our faculty would tell us, like, why didn't I pass my accessibility check? I used the accessibility checker, and well, they actually don't call it that. They say, I used Canvas's little man and everything came out perfect. I had balloons on every pages. Well, we want to teach people how to do it without using that crutch because it's so inaccurate. And so we did talk about the accessibility checker in a couple of places. One area that we focused on that is when it gives wildly inaccurate feedback to them, to just let them know, hey, if you're relying on this, don't do it. And when we feel like it does give really good feedback, we've told them that as well. We also adopted Pope Tech at the same time as we started the accessibility challenge, and we found that Pope Tech offers more information than the Canvas accessibility checker, and that it offers more context for helping people walk through those gray areas as well. And so we have some videos on Pope Tech that we share with our faculty. We don't use You Do It or Ally for a variety of different reasons, but Long Beach City College does use Ally and reported some really good feedback to us about how they're using it. Yeah, I got a really lovely email from Michael, just walking through how he created the course. And, you know, in hindsight, we should have had him on as well. That would have been really great, but he just sent me the email actually right before I left for vacation. So it's a little add on there. Other questions or thoughts, comments?
Hey, Lene, it's Lori. Great.
Hi, Lori.
You know, you again, another shining light in our system, showing the great work that's happening and how the shared collaborative effort that's taking place across our system is just so important.
Well, thank you for saying that. And I mean, I just have to say that I've had the great pleasure of working with Lori on the statewide accessibility work group. And, part of that work group is what led me to create this type of resource, because as we are, working to create policy across the state, if we don't back it up with resources, we are really in the dark. And so the collaboration with Lori and that team, they deserve some credit as well, because those conversations that we had in that work group were just so amazing, and helped clarify some things about what we can have our faculty actually do. So that was great. Thank you, Lori. Other thoughts about how you might be able to use this on your campus? Any light bulbs coming on that you can share with other people?
I was thinking, again, this is Lori, when we went through our emergency distance ed addendums, working with individual faculty, at the same time, we ramped up the accessibility checks along with our equity checks. And while I try to work on a rubric with the faculty for both equity and accessibility, what was missing was just having those little short video clips to send to a faculty member who might have had a question. So I can see where I can add this into the additional work that our Faculty Resource Center is doing. And this would be a fun, relaxing animated feature that faculty could, I think, relate to.
Yeah, we really worked hard to make sure that that there was a teachable moment within the video, and then we showed people how to do it in Canvas. And there's also some like little tricks and tips that we learned from each other while doing these as well. So for instance, I use a lot of infographics, and some people shy away from infographics because there's so many words on the page. But I show an example of how I have this complex image. It's on the page. It's a great UDL for people who get overwhelmed by a lot of information. The infographic style is really good for a specific type of learner, but not great for people who have visual impairment or who may just want to get to the facts. And so I create a text only page and then create another page in Canvas. And I have like a streamlined way that I do that. So in our video on complex images, we have one video that is on simple alt text, and then we have another video that's on complex images. So what do you do when you have a lot of data in the image, or what do you do when you're using an infographic? And so that little trick is in there about how to create that long description using a Canvas page. So that's kind of fun. Thanks, Corinne. Is it Corinne or Corrine? Corinne. We tried really hard to be concise, but that also means that, we have 10 videos. So.
But that's what makes it easy to sprinkle into a class, which is good. And the name's Corrine, and nice to meet you. I think I've met you before, but great work. You and Helen both do really great work.
Yeah, Helen's my inspiration, right? Whenever we were crafting anything, I was like, okay, would Helen approve of this? If she would, then we're at a go for the script. But yeah,
she used to work with us, so I know her well. She's wonderful.
Yeah. Other things you can do on your campus to utilize these, or are there other resources that we can creatively, collectively work on together? Thoughts or ideas, things that people are coming up against that we need to work on next?
Just another question. How are you weaving the conversation of accessibility into the equity discussion on your campus?
Yeah, that's a long one. So on our campus, because of everything that has happened in the last year, there's a focus on racial equity. And so a needed focus on racial equity. But I think that the conversation about racial equity opens up opportunities for us to say, what can we do overall in all of our courses to improve them? And I really, really embrace the idea of continual improvement. It's really hard to be perfect from, the first gate. And so this idea that we'll come back and revisit and learn and keep refining and support people as they're refining their online courses is important to me in my own work and important to the work that we're doing with faculty. So I think that the conversation that's happening with equity is reinforcing this idea that we keep working on our courses. And so that alone, like you don't reach a point where, oh, my class is 100% accessible, I don't have to do anything else to it. It's something that we're continually working on, and at every step of the way where we're assessing whether or not the things that we're doing are working for all of our students. So I think that kind of critical piece of our equity push is helping our accessibility push as well. People are just more open to working on their course more. So that's a really great thing for us. As far as the weaving in, I think it's easier to weave in examples when we're talking about accessibility, to weave in examples that demonstrate for faculty how they can be more inclusive in their classes. And so that idea of inclusion, we can make it visible by including examples that use racially diverse groups. We had a big conversation about, we have a hand that draws in some of those. It's part of the animation software that we're using. We use Beyond, and we've been very, very happy with it, by the way. Let me just put it in the chat for everyone. We use Beyond Studios for our animation, and we've been really happy with it. So that little hand that animates, we said, well, we should use the hand of a person of color instead of their default hand, which is white and male. And we had a long conversation about it, like whether or not that was cultural appropriation, whether or not that was claiming that our department was more diverse than it actually is. And that conversation helped us think through how these pieces are fitting together and supporting one another. So just, the most basic pieces of how we're setting up conversations and how we're centering both accessibility and diversity in those conversations has been incredibly important over this last year.
That's a good example. On our campus, our curriculum committee will be holding a discussion on how we blend in equity into the curriculum now that we've gone through this DE emergency process. And I think one way we're going to do it is by taking one of the core classes, specifically on course design for racial equity. And one of the curriculum members, one of our science faculty, brought up her concern about, what are we trying to get at? Is it social justice? Is it racial equity? Knowing that she has also been exposed to accessibility. And her example was of a personal nature where she was commenting on, does this also include her daughter who is trans and also has a learning disability? And so she wants to be sure that when she's trained in curriculum, and even though we're talking about racial equity, we're also including that. So I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, well, so Laura, you and I have talked before about universal design, and like, it's such a powerful learning theory, and yet it hasn't been as widely adopted as I think that it needs to be. And so one of the things that we found is that there's lots of people very interested in our workshops on universal design all of a sudden. And there is lots of ways to weave together equity and accessibility when you're talking about universal design. And so that has been a really wonderful conversation that a small but growing group of faculty have been having on our campus.
Great, thanks for sharing.
I think we might be at the end of a long 2 days of presentations, Dawn, because I thought there would be a lot more crosstalk here, but it could be that people have absorbed like the sponges that they are, and they need to go and think about it.
Yes, we've had a great day of presentations. I very much enjoyed your presentation and how it morphed into kind of the theme of the day, even more than we had planned. So thank you very much, Lene. One last opportunity to ask Lene questions before we sign off. We do also have the Vision Resource Center. You can post your hot questions that you remember at 3 a.m. There, and we will answer them for everybody to see. We do also have the IT Access listserv. We'll be posting this video along with all the other videos onto our CCC accessibility page. Once they are accessible, been checked for accessibility and captions and all of that. So without any further ado, if nobody else has any questions, everybody has an early finish for today. All right, thank you very much.
Thanks all, good job.